really that simple. Because everything is kind of a haze over there. At least it was for me. I didn't know what I was doing half the time, and I don't think anybody else did over there too, at least in my unit. We had no time. We were trying to, between patrols, we were trying to get ourselves right. Get a few beers together, get our, blow out our heads for a night or two before we went out on our next patrol. And that was part of it. You lived with the guys, and you partied together. You got ready for patrol together. You did all the stuff together, and that makes a family out of them. And because it was really, really very serious when you got out there. No matter what we did in the rear, no matter how crazy we did, what we were and what we did, with one rule, when you are going out on dark 30 the next morning, you better be straight, you better be clean, you better be ready. So when you're down on that LV ready to go out on patrols, and there were numerous patrols, dotted all over the LZ. When that morning light came up, the choppers bringing in the patrols that had been out, they would be coming on in, old patrols coming out of those choppers, new patrols going on. And there would be like a LZ captain, pointing at these patrols, you're next, you're next, you're next. And it was just this round robin of choppers coming in, letting out troops, and us going on board and going on out. It was like that all morning until all the patrols were either came in, and all the patrols going out. And it was an extraordinary experience. This hurry up and wait is for real, but boy, when it's no longer waiting, it's really real. And you're in it, and you're in war. So now you're in war. You're really there. And anyway, it was quite an experience.
The next question may be a little more difficult. I'm going to ask all of you to try to answer this as best you can. I want you to describe what you might consider to be the worst day you ever had in Vietnam, and then go 180 degrees the other way and try to describe the best experience that you had, if there was such a thing as a best experience. And I don't mean getting on the Freedom Bird. I know that's probably the best for everybody, but before the Freedom Bird, what was your best day? So start with Penny. What was the worst day you had?
I think probably the worst day that I can remember was after the Khe Sanh siege. During TET, we had been really, really busy, but we were taking on patients and sending them off right away. At Khe Sanh, we were getting a few casualties from that, but afterwards was the worst part. Once the fighting was over, they were bringing us wounded. They were coming by helicopter, by boat, however we could get them. The chief of my department came down to the lab, and he said to the guys, okay, all hands on deck. Anybody who's not here, go to the quarters, get them, bring them back. And I said to him, what's going on? And he said, well, we now have the bodies coming from Khe Sanh, and we have to get them aboard because we have to take them to Graves Registration in Da Nang. Okay, he said, can you handle the laboratory by yourself? And I said, well, I guess I have before, I can do it again. I don't think we're going to be super busy right now. And so he said, okay. So all my corpsmen left, and they proceeded to bring ashore or aboard the ship from the boats and from helicopters, all of the bodies from Khe Sanh. The problem was I didn't realize that a lot of those bodies had been laying there for 2 or 3 days. And I have to tell you that the odor is not something that I will ever forget. The corpsmen were bringing the bodies, are my own corpsmen, plus others from the ship, bringing the bodies aboard. We only had 3 refrigerated compartments in our morgue. And so the bodies were having to go into a refrigerated space. And the refrigerated space that was available was the space that we kept all of our laboratory supplies in. So the chief had gone down and consolidated everything, dated everything, shoved everything over onto shelves, made it a little hard to find things later, but at that point in time, that wasn't the main object was to make as much room in that refrigerator as we could so that we could get all the bodies aboard. That odor is something that I said I would never forget, and I won't. I've lived on a farm, I've lived other places, and there's nothing that compares to that. It wasn't something that I ever expected to have to deal with. And that's something that does come back periodically. But it was just something that had to be done. One of the things that I did do for my corpsmen was that I knew that their clothing could not go into the regular laundry. It couldn't lay there with everybody else's clothes. So with the chief's permission, we sent everybody back to their quarters to get clean clothes, to go to the shower with a plastic bag, and put all their clothes in a plastic bag. Now, I have to tell you that I did not make friends among the nursing staff by doing this, but at that point I didn't really care. I took all of their clothes and I took them up to the nurses' quarters because we had a washer and dryer. And I washed everything. And I dumped it all together, so when I took it out, they had to sort their own clothes, but they were clean, because that just couldn't stay there. And our refrigerator, even after we went to Da Nang and we took the bodies back to Graves Registration, because we had cardboard in there, and paper bolts, that odor, and to the day that I left that ship, I could still smell that in that refrigerated space. Now, going the other way, I guess probably the best days that I had, or good days that I had, were when we went to Subic Bay in the Philippines. We would go about once every 3 months, and we would take all the patients. We would take a boatload, literally a shipload. We didn't really have any empty beds usually on that trip. We would take those people to the Philippines, and we would transfer them to Clark Air Force Base, which was a staging area at that point in time for the wounded, because we could not send them directly to Camp Zama, Japan, which was the next stop for a lot of them, or to Okinawa, because they had to spend time in each one of those places to get stabilized for that trip home. It was a long ride. And so we could go to the officers' club, we could have fresh food, we could have a good meal, we could have a drink, we could go visit. I went to Baguio and Manila in the Philippines. I didn't go to Corregidor, although I had the opportunity, but I didn't go there. I didn't feel like I needed to know any more about the Second World War than what I already did. But it was the opportunity to be away from the patients, away from the hospital, and to just take a breath. You could go to the beauty shop and get your hair done. That was wonderful. You could go shopping. We didn't have it used for a lot of things, but you could go shopping. And I managed to get myself in trouble because I went to an area in the Philippines where it was off limits. The problem was it was off limits, and the guys all knew about it, but they never told any of the women. So that was, I didn't really get in trouble except that I was told, don't do that again. But it was, overall the shopping experience was great. But when I came back aboard and they said, where were you? And I said where I was, and the officer on the deck said, how did you get there? Took a special services car. That's the only way we had to get around. And he took you there? And I said, yeah, and he waited for us too. He said, good thing. So, that was a good day. Some days were a lot worse than others. When you were just constantly in motion, you were constantly worrying about, I have this many casualties, I have this many units of blood, how am I going to stretch this? Who's going to use this? Who isn't going to use this? Having to find a physician to say, okay, I have blood available in this person. Do you think he's really going to use it? Because if he's not going to use it, this guy's going to use it. Will you release it to me and let me use it for somebody else? That was a big stressor point for us. So these days when we were able to get off of the ship worked wonders for us. They had to make them last for a while.
I have two things that I want to share as being my best days in Vietnam. I arrived there about the 9th of March in '66, and I should have been there a month earlier, but there was an event that was about to happen in our home, the birth of our fourth child. And everybody, including the district chaplain and General Holcmuth, my commanding general at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, did everything possible to delay that. It got to the point where it couldn't be delayed anymore, and so on the 6th I left home and on my way to Vietnam. On the 11th or 12th, actually it was, when the Red Cross message came, it was saying that your baby daughter has been born, mom and child are doing well. I saw that daughter 1 year later for the first time, and she is right here in the front row. And whenever you walk down Main Street, crossing the Marriott, you're going to see a sign, Copy Connection. That is owned by her and my grandson, who sits there with the hat on. Incidentally, Dane was the first person to ever thank me for my service in Vietnam. That was a very, very emotional moment when he wrote that note and gave it to me. My job-wise best event in my life in Vietnam was the night we got word there was going to be mass casualties. And we didn't have room for them. This, again, keep in mind, was early in Vietnam days. And the senior surgeon said to me, Gordon, will you walk with me tonight? I have to determine who lives or dies. We had prayer, and as I walked with Bill down the course of those wards, he would say, this one goes, meaning he may not make it. But we had to get the worst people out because we didn't know what was coming. My admiration for hospitalmen, nurses, and doctors in the military, I can't speak highly enough of them and the decisions they have to make. I'm very fortunate in our family to have two physicians. One of my oldest daughters is here with us tonight, and I have a son that's up in the Philadelphia area. The worst day in Vietnam for me, I think, was on a Sunday morning. I had just completed the worship service in the chapel, and I could hear those dreaded helicopters coming. It still bothers me when a helicopter flies over our place over in Algonquin Park, because it reminds me of Vietnam. And when they came with such speed, you knew that there was something serious being carried. And as I left the chapel, I heard them coming over Marble Mountain, and they scooted down along the road and cut into our landing site. The corpsmen came running out to get the stretchers, and as they ran with these stretchers, I could see that they were not carrying a normal load. Immediately my thought was, oh, we've got another one of those double, triple, or quadruple amputees coming in. And so I ran. And when I got down to the emergency room, I opened the door. There were 5 or 6 little girls about the same age as my 2 older daughters, Wendy being one of them. They had been mortared by the VC around a tree with a mama son, 20-some little kids. And as I walked in, the air and the blood were just oozing out of their chests for all the holes that they had. I'll never forget that day. And it's just one of those things that just, no, it hangs with you and doesn't ever, ever leave you.